Have you ever heard of the story of a father killing his daughter? His own daughter. In 2005, Jerry Hobbs would make one of the most shocking confessions in the world when he was just 35 years old. And what exactly was his crime? Jerry Hobbs confessed to the murder of his 8-year-old daughter's friend, but he didn't just kill her friend. He also killed his daughter. This cold, hard fact was quite chilling to the bones, especially for those around when it all happened. We've often heard tales of parents protecting their children from life-threatening situations, so why would this father decide to kill his biological daughter? Keep an open mind, 'cause you'll be amazed at how this shocking tale would end. In 2005, Jerry Hobbs claimed to have found the bodies of his 8-year-old daughter, Laura Hobbs, and her 9-year-old friend, Crystal, in a park that was located very close to his home. When the police arrived on the scene, they were horrified to see what they found. It was obvious that the girls had gone through things that no one should ever have to go through, as it was discovered that they had both been stabbed a total of 31 times. Take note of the fact that these girls were minors who had not even clocked 10. And that's not the worst part of everything that happened. They also found out that the two girls had been sexually assaulted, and each wound on their skin was inflicted in such a cruel way. It was apparent that whoever killed them was not just sick in the head, but was also a heartless criminal. The people of Zion were incredibly shaken after they heard what happened. It was hard enough knowing that 2 children in the neighborhood had been raped and killed in the most brutal way possible, but the fact that the main suspect was Laura's father, that was just unbelievable. After Jerry got to the station, he was asked to read the statement that the police had given him. But isn't that strange? Why would the police ask Jerry to read a confession they had already written? Stay glued to your screen, 'cause you'll be surprised at how this story ends. According to Jerry's confession, which had already been written for him, he had gone for a fun outing with his wife and their 4 kids on a Sunday, but after they returned, his daughter had asked to play with a friend outside. Before the day of Laura and Crystal's deaths, Laura was grounded by her parents for stealing her mom's $40, but Laura's mom decided to let her go. Jerry refused to say a thing, even though he wasn't comfortable with the fact that Sheila, Laura's mom, had decided to let her go out with a friend when she was supposed to be serving punishment for petty stealing. After a while, Jerry decided to check up on Laura and bring her home, but he didn't know her whereabouts, so he had asked his son about where Laura was playing. Jerry headed straight for the park after his son informed him that Laura had gone there to play. He further revealed that he had seen Laura and Crystal at the park, but Laura fought with him and refused to go home with him. Jerry decided to grab his daughter by the arm, but she pushed against him and asked him to let her go. She was joined by her friend, Crystal, who took a small pocket knife out of her pocket and asked him to let her go. Why would a 9-year-old girl be holding a pocket knife in the first place? None of that mattered, because what would happen in the next few minutes of their encounter would change Hobbs's life forever. According to Hobbs, or the police who had written his confession, Crystal bit Hobbs while he tried dragging his daughter back home, so he punched her in the face. The confession also showed that Laura had fallen and had gotten so angry that she'd stabbed Crystal in the chest. It was apparent that Hobbs was rambling at this point, but the police didn't care. They had gotten all the evidence they needed to arrest Jerry for killing his daughter, and it only took them 24 grueling hours. But you know the crazy thing that occurred after Jerry made that confession? He was asked if he had made a free and voluntary statement. But why would anyone call a confession that was literally handwritten by the police a free and voluntary statement? Hobbs agreed to this anyway, and there was nothing to dispute that he was a guilty man. Why would anyone believe that Jerry was not responsible for the deaths of Laura and Crystal, whom he fondly referred to as angels, when he had described the entire ordeal in such a graphic manner? While many would find it hard to believe that a father could kill his own daughter, Jerry's unconventional past was one of the primary reasons why people easily believed that Jerry might have killed his own daughter. Up until the 8th grade, Jerry was just like any other kid, but then he decided to drop out of school and things went downhill from there. Jerry became a delinquent who first went to prison for illegal drug possession before being convicted for more severe crimes such as physical assault. Still, it wasn't until 2001 before Jerry committed his most serious crime. So what exactly happened anyway? You'd probably be surprised at what happened. But it turns out that Jerry and his girlfriend of many years, spoiler alert, Sheila, the mother of his kids. So they fought at the Texas trailer park where they lived. As the argument turned physical, 3 men rushed to Sheila's defense. Jerry was even more angry because the men decided to get involved, so he got a weapon, a chainsaw, and chased the men around the trailer park with it. Insane, right? Someone finally got Jerry to stop moving by hitting him in the back with a shovel. When the police showed up, they took over. After what happened with the chainsaw, Jerry was charged with aggravated assault. He was found guilty in December 2002 and given 10 years of probation. But because he missed scheduled meetings with his probation officer, his probation was canceled. In October 2003, he went to prison for 18 months. In April 2005, Jerry was granted his release from a Texas prison. He boarded a bus and headed northeast to Zion, Illinois, a town with over 23,000 residents. Before meeting up with Sheila, he planned to visit her parents and spend time with Sheila and their 4 children, including the 3 children he had fathered, namely Laura and her 2 brothers. Despite their complicated history, Sheila was still in love with Jerry. They planned to start over, but things went wrong less than a month later after Laura and Crystal died. They had such a happy beginning together. The neighborhood was busy and happy because it was a lovely afternoon. On the day of Crystal and Laura's death, the inseparable best friends decided to ride bikes together and go for a walk in Beulah Park, which was not too far from their house. But the girls' fun afternoon would not last long. Based on what Jerry said, the girls' fun afternoon ended quickly when he arrived at the scene. After the girls passed away, Jerry was arrested by the police, who were sure that they had gotten all the information they needed. It was almost too simple. Jerry was obviously the primary suspect and murderer. He was taken into custody while he waited for his trial. Since Jerry's crime was quite brutal, many people were naturally against him and couldn't wait to see him being put behind bars or suffering a worse fate. Jerry stayed in jail while the government built its case against him. In August 2007, Jerry's defense team found something they thought would change the case. He had been locked up for more than 2 years, while Jerry's statement, or in this case, his forced confession, had revealed that he had only physically assaulted Laura and Crystal. They found out that the DNA from the real criminal had been found at the crime scene. Wait, did you just say the real criminal? I thought you said Jerry killed his daughter. The shocking truth of this entire case is that Jerry didn't kill his daughter or her 9-year-old friend, but someone else was responsible for it. We'll get into more details on that later. So it turns out the DNA belonged to one person and had 3 different kinds of material. Jerry, on the other hand, wasn't a match. Even though they had new information, the prosecutors devised a bizarre and unlikely theory to explain it away. According to them, the girls were playing in a place popularly known by the town's residents. They were sometimes used for extracurricular activities, which is why they thought the DNA found on Laura had been passed on to her by accident. Although the police worked to build a case against Jerry, who was charged with the murders in 2005 and was still in jail, the prosecution team failed. He had not been found guilty yet, but it looked like it was only a matter of time. After all, most people thought the case was over. All the evidence pointed towards Jerry, which made it pretty convincing that he was guilty of the murder of his own daughter. While all this drama was occurring, a 20-year-old Navy officer named Amanda Snell didn't show up for her shift at the Pentagon, and her boss was very worried. Amanda was a very dedicated worker, so why would she take a day off without prior notice? She rarely ever came to work late, so her co-workers decided to check on her. The people who came to check on her at the base where she lived did not answer the door when they knocked. Military personnel checked the door and saw that it wasn't locked. They then went inside. But to their horror, they found the unexpected. Amanda's broken, lifeless body was squished into a small closet. It was later discovered that she had been dead for at least 2 days, 2 whole days. The crime scene was cleaned up and possible evidence was gathered, but the attacker was still unknown and on the run. A few months later, on February 27, 2010, almost 5 years after the murders in Zion, there was another attack. It took place only 3 miles from Amanda's base in Arlington. Are you noticing the trend in all these? You'll be surprised by the next revelation. The attack took place during early hours when 2 female graduate students came home from a night out. Before they could get in, a man with a gun suddenly showed up and threatened them. He dragged them inside and quickly tied their hands together with electrical cords. The attacker didn't waste time in grabbing one of the women. He told her to get into his car and drove her to the woods, where he assaulted her in the most brutal way possible. But he wasn't even satisfied with this. He choked her until she passed out and left her in the woods, face down in the snow, with no one to help her. What kind of animal would do such a thing anyway? Luckily for the 2 ladies, his plan didn't work out as planned because, while he had assumed that the lady was long gone, she woke up a few minutes later and crawled to a nearby road, where a kind person discovered her. She miraculously survived. But the police would get an even bigger surprise after the investigation started. The young woman gave the police a lot of helpful information, including detailed descriptions of how the suspect looked and what kind of car he was driving. But she didn't just give accurate physical descriptions, and she also gave them the DNA of her assaulter. It didn't take long for the police to arrest the man who fit the physical description. Jorge Torres was caught relaxing in his house and taken into custody. The police didn't waste any time in taking his DNA and searching his property, but they were stunned by the sight before them. After Jorge's car was searched, they found the college ID of the woman he had assaulted alongside an earring in the back seat of his SUV. In the following months, the suspect stayed in jail while waiting to be tried. Then June came, and something extraordinary happened. The suspect's DNA was passed into the FBI database to determine if he had committed any other crime. Based on the kind of crime he had confessed to, it was almost a surefire thing that another match would be found. And this time, the results were utterly shocking. The results didn't just come positive for the murder of 2 women. It also showed that Jorge was responsible for the murder of 2 little girls. Get this, 2 little girls, namely Laura and Crystal, in Zion, Illinois, in 2005. Isn't that the most horrendous thing you've ever heard? Tracing the connection didn't take long. It turned out that a young man was living in Zion at the time of the attacks. He was a junior in high school and was only 16 years old when the scary discovery was made. He knew Crystal's older brother. His name was Jorge Torres. This shows that Jorge raped his colleague's sister and her friend while he was still a teenager. Was this creep really allowed to wander around for that long? Well, at least one thing was proven. Jerry wasn't guilty. He was in jail for horrible crimes he had nothing to do with. The real monster, Jorge, stayed free the whole time. The following year, in 2006, he graduated. After only a few months, he joined the Marines. A judge would later say this was an escape route instead of what would usually be considered honorable service. The judge was right. Without a doubt, it was a way to get away and carry out one brutal attack after another. The charges against Jerry were finally dropped 2 weeks after Jorge's crimes were brought to light, and an innocent man was allowed to go home to his family again. Around the time Jerry got out of jail, Jorge was planning something inside the prison walls. Police thought he was planning to kill possible witnesses who could be called to testify in his upcoming trial. So they hired someone to get them some secret intel. Not too long after, the informant was wired, and could record several conversations. One thing in particular caught the attention of the police right away, but it wasn't what they were expecting. They managed to get a video of Jorge confessing to how he found and raped Amanda Snell after tying her up with her laptop cord. He also had a very evident smirk on his face as he revealed that he had to kill her because she had seen his face, and he couldn't let her go. She could go and inform the police. But the most annoying that stuck out from his entire confession was the part where he said just because they pass out doesn't mean they're dead. He was obviously referring to the college student who had made it to the roadside and started the chain of reactions that got him in jail. Like, can you believe his guts? Someone else took the fall, for Christ's sake. Jorge talked about what he did to Amanda in a very sloppy way. It was pretty easy to see that Jorge is not just your average killer, he's also a psychopath who believes that what he's doing is art and he wants to be greatly admired for it. Because Jorge gave such a detailed description of how he attacked and killed Amanda Snell, a bed sheet that had been taken from her apartment, and kept as evidence to be tested right away. Since Jorge and Amanda worked at the same base, they lived close to each other. It turned out his apartment was next door to hers down the hall. Unsurprisingly, the DNA on the sheet belonged to Jorge once the link was made. In December 2010, he was imprisoned for crimes against the graduate student. He was found guilty on more than one charge and given 5 life sentences plus 168 years of consecutive sentences. That trial was, of course, just the first among many. There would be more after this. In 2014, Jorge's trial for killing Amanda finally began, almost 4 years after he was found guilty in the case of the graduate student. The recordings that were used as evidence were played during the trial. It didn't come as a surprise that the federal jury found Jorge guilty. He was given the death penalty by a federal judge at the end of May. After the federal case ended in the middle of November 2014, Jorge was sent to Lake County, Illinois, to be put on trial for killing Laura and Crystal in Zion. But surprisingly, even though Jorge was already on death row, Mike Nerheim, who is the current state's attorney for Lake County, said that he thought it was essential to try him. The Zion Police Department failed miserably in the case of Jerry Hobbs. Jorge had to wait almost 4 years for his trial. In the middle of September 2018, Jorge was given 100 years in prison, 50 years for each girl he admitted to killing. But hold on for a second. If Jerry wasn't the killer, then why did he admit to committing crimes that he didn't do? At first, it was just a straightforward fact. They broke me, Jerry told his mother in 2005. Of course, things turned out to be much more complicated than that. Jerry is not the first person to admit to committing a crime that he has never done. People admit to doing things they didn't do for many different reasons. Since interrogations can last for hours, it's unsurprising that someone might give up and say crazy things that they never did just to escape being tortured for hours. As soon as Jerry was released, he told the truth about how he had felt when he was first arrested. He had not slept in days and had also recently found out that his child had died, which made it hard for him to think clearly. He had located his sweet little angel, and her head didn't even have eyes, and the thought of it had a jarring effect on him. After Jerry's charges were dropped, details of his confession came to light. The police knew they were wrong. The DNA test results came out in 2008, but they kept going with the old story anyway. Jerry just wanted to get out of questioning and cry his eyes out, but the police were more interested in sending him to jail since too many people were angry about what happened. They needed to ease the people's pain. Besides, there was no other plausible explanation for what had happened. The civil case against Jerry was settled in February 2014, and he was given a mind-blowing sum of $7.75 million. But we all know that no amount of money is enough to bring his daughter back or fix the number of years that Jerry had missed out on with his family. The Jerry Hobbs case is definitely one of the most unusual cases in history. All right, guys, share your thoughts on this story in the comments. Check out our channel for more videos. And don't forget to click the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed this video.